Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch Project. It's Thursday, December 17th, 2020. The year is almost over, and what a crazy year it's been. I haven't made a podcast in a while, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One is because when I go out into the world, even here where I live in Florida, which has no enforceable mask mandate, the number of terrorized sheeple I see in stores and just out and about. There are places I've been to where mask wearers were in the minority, but it's only a couple places. Most places, they're just scared to death. Some people are outright nasty. They look angry at you if you're not wearing a mask. It's insane. I wanted to make a podcast that splits into two parts. So the first half here is going to talk about Earth life and freedom here on Earth and the problems we have in obtaining individuality, freedom on Earth here during our incarnation as humans, and then the afterlife afterward. Now, there's only two reasons why you wouldn't like either the first half or the second half of what I have to say. If your programming, if your indoctrination is to believe all this stuff that the news tells you and that you believe in the corona hoax, well, you're probably not going to want to listen to what I have to say. In the second half, if you don't believe in the afterlife, or if you're stuck on a religious, dogmatic, doctrine-driven system that has told you what the afterlife is, and that's the only thing it can be, and it can't be anything else, well, you probably have some problems with that too. Look, here's how I go about this. So when I first started Overwatch Project, I was trying to... The original purpose was actually, I was had grown up as a Catholic, and I was raised that way, but I never really complied fully with any of that stuff. I clearly deviated off of what I was taught to do. I was made to feel guilty about it, and, so I was like a Catholic in name only, basically, and I had some issues, questions, problems with everything going on in my religion, and I started to actually do Overwatch Project. This podcast may be a little long. Hopefully you'll listen to it, and you'll have time to listen to it. Basically, I started it to discover I was trying to find authentic Christianity. I had started off with a premise that Christianity has to have some kind of authentic version because I was programmed that way. It was only through like a decade of research, reading the Bible, cover to cover, researching footnotes, researching other things like the Septuagint. I did a massive amount of research, and then I eventually came to the conclusion that no, there is no authentic Christianity. There's a lot of problems that what is in these books, and what people think they, how should I say this? What people have come to believe their religion is about isn't even what's written in the books, in the Bible. They believe things that don't even actually coherently exist in the Bible. So the whole religious thing kind of fell apart, but through the course of my research, thousands of near-death experience accounts, out-of-body experiences, studying what was going on at the Monroe Institute, reading like Robert Monroe's books, but just going through the massive data coming in from all kinds of sources of near-death experiences. Anita Moorjani, her thing, Pam Reynolds, that famous case. There's so much. And you can find all this on my website, overwatchproject.com. There's a ton of resource material there to look at and try to make sense of all this. So let's begin with the first half. The first half is Earth life. So you're incarnated as a human being. Now, you start off with a handicap or a benefit, depending on what time and place you're born. Somehow there's a basic imprint when humans incarnate and they can tell you what that basic imprint is pretty accurately under Vedic astrology, especially. And it was really strange when I had a person do my Vedic astrology chart, and she didn't know anything about me. She did not know my past or my former profession, and that I used to actually work as an investigator, all different types of investigation, private detective work, and then even in law enforcement. So she had no idea what I'd done for a living, and how obsessive I get when I'm researching something or trying to solve a mystery. And right after she does my chart on her computer, she looks up at me, and the first thing she says is, "Your chart shows that you would be a really good at investigation work, at solving puzzles or mysteries." And I've seen other people get their Vedic charts, and they all look amazed. So Vedic astrology is where to start for that, if you find a person that actually knows what they're doing. But the point is that we're imprinted with a kind of like a basic thing, sort of like an avatar in a video game. When you're born, you have this basic imprint, these basic tendencies. Now they can work for you or they can work against you. They can be a plus or a minus, and it's really kind of like just based on the time and place you're born, which is kind of like really kind of cruel. And then from then on, right after that, you're born, and then your mind is filled with trash that comes from what your parents were taught that they pass on to you, who's ever your friends and family and whatever they're telling you, and your school and your religion or your lack of religion if you're a materialist or grew up as a materialist. And all this stuff is pumped into your head. And then, if you don't have any curiosity, you will spend the rest of your life defending the premises that you have come to believe are true simply because that's the way you've been programmed. And from then on, you either question it or you don't for the rest of your life. Turns out for me, even as a young person, as 8 years old, I was always questioning everything. So I was never happy with things that had inconsistencies and, had to know the truth. So it took me like 45, 50 years of my life to finally figure things out. But now that I'm where I'm at, I realize and kind of like I'm disheartened to make more podcasts because there are people out there and they genuinely have no interest in solving any of these mysteries. I'm just going to turn down I'm sure you can hear my PlayStation in the background. I don't know if that's going to bother you. I'm just going to lower the music. So, anyway, the thing is that there's a genuine lack of curiosity. There's a tremendous amount of cognitive dissonance. I've said this before. I believe human beings were not created by the creator of life in the universe, the originator of the creation of everything, which is some unknowable thing. But human beings are a product of tampering of life here on Earth by some other entity or entities. You can call them gods with little g or aliens. And the best resource for that to just find out how messed up we are is Dr. Ellis Silver's second edition book, Humans Are Not From Earth, and that is a great way to start. There's a tremendous amount of information on there. You can get a lot of information from other sources. You can also read the Sumerian tablets, which probably has the best myth of our human origins. But, we have a flawed way of thinking, a kind of like a slave mind that was given to us, as Carlos Castaneda wrote about. And you can read that quote on the bottom of my homepage at overwatchproject.com. The thing is that our major programming default is to be able to do something called cognitive dissonance, which allows people to have two opposing thoughts in their mind and have them have the illusion that these two opposing thoughts can go together and be in agreement. So The problem I have is I don't like having opposing thoughts in my head. I like having things make sense. So in order for me to make things have sense, I've had to do a tremendous amount of research and come to conclusions and deductions that were based on a totality of a massive amount of information that I collected over a long, long time, and to have my conclusions and deductions not conflict with that information. So that eliminates all these religions, it eliminates materialism, it eliminates so many things. And what you're left with is a spiritual view of the world, but one that is void of dogmas and doctrines. And the afterlife, when you map it out as a collage of all these near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences that people have had, really begins to look much more grand and much more complex than any religion makes it out to be. And that people have stupid ideas about reality and stupid ideas about how to get along with one another. And there's a whole bunch of sheeple out there. So here on Earth, in Earth life, we are surrounded by a tremendous amount of people that are willing to, for the purposes of submission and to get along and to act like a fucking slave, they're willing to go along with the most ridiculous nonsense, even when the information that shows that what they're doing is wrong is readily available from the sources they claim to be the official sources. So when you have all kinds of conflicting data coming out of doctors' mouths and people that are supposedly the experts and the news media and all this other stuff, and yet people just go along with this nonsense. These instructions are given that surrender their liberty, violate their, in the United States here, violate the First Amendment, violate the Fourth Amendment, violate the Fifth Amendment. This is all insane stuff, right? And in the meantime, they also want to take away the Second Amendment. None of these things actually come from amendments. The Constitution in America simply is saying that we have these rights naturally and they should never be infringed because no government has the right to infringe on them, while we're living in a place that is infringing on everything. So on Earth, what you have is first thing is a grand delusion that people have in government. And what they don't see that's right in front of their faces is that the very things that they consider to be criminal, that any person would, with a reasonable mind, consider to be criminal, suddenly becomes unreasonable because they consider the same actions taken by government to be not criminal. Government's the greatest scam ever. So you have taxation here on Earth. In just about every country, I think, unless you live in North Korea where you don't own anything, or some of these other countries where basically everybody's crushed under massive oppression, you have taxation. You have to pay taxes. But what are taxes? Taxes are robbery and extortion under a different name. When government does it, it's a tax. If you did the exact same thing, it'd be a robbery or extortion. It's fucking amazing how they get away with this stuff. And it's the sheeple, the enablers of the tyrants that let them get away with everything. So we're kind of outnumbered to a massive, huge degree here on Earth. Freedom on Earth is next to impossible because of the number of sheeple that enable a tiny minority of tyrants to get away with unbelievable crimes, oppression, murder, and all kinds of other nonsense. And basically torture and coercion, right? And it goes on and on and on. So freedom on Earth could end tomorrow. It could begin tomorrow, where everybody individually experiences massive more freedom if the sheeple would ever stop being sheeple. But that's not very likely, is it? Now that we get all the negative stuff out of the way, I wanted to go into some positive things for you to consider. The afterlife is a much more vast existence. When our incarnated bodies die here, there will be an attempt to pacify you so that eventually you can reincarnate here again. And because you can't be forced to do anything against your free will, especially in the afterlife, you have to be tricked into doing it, or seduced, or you're made to think that that's what you want to do. Of course, if you die with the knowledge and the intent not to do that, then you won't do it. It's that simple. There's a huge difference in the incarnated world. One of the reasons we're so easily coerced is because the pain factor, the needs that you have to secure yourself, shelter, food, you have to go to the bathroom, you have to, you may need health care support. We're weaker, our brains dilute our consciousness down to a pathetically low level. We need some method of transportation beyond walking usually to be effective at going anywhere. So you need a car or an Uber to take you somewhere, or you need to fly, or you need to go on a train or a bus. It's actually a dreadful, horrible existence. And then I see these YouTube videos from these idiots. Oh, it's the 5D, it's coming, or the Enlightenment is coming, or whatever other crap they're pulling. And I'm like, have you people taken a look around at all the fucking morons walking around with masks on their face, acting like they're fucking terrorized? I'm sorry for cursing, but it really is unbelievable how dense people are. This place is shitty, okay? But in the afterlife, you don't need to eat. You don't need to go to the bathroom. Best I can tell, you can project yourself, your consciousness, and your astral body and your etheric body to anywhere you want to go simply by desiring to go there. There is nothing that can prevent you from doing that except for yourself, or if you're become fearful or something is trying to instill fear in you. I have to say, in my best judgment, there's both good and evil in the afterlife, just like there is here on Earth. There's a lot of good people on Earth. Unfortunately, most of them are sheeple that are no good to anyone else, but they're not trying to actively hurt other people. They just don't know any better. And then you have, people that listen to my channel or on Spreaker here or BitChute, and they're trying to better their own lives, trying to understand what reality is all about. And there are parasites here, right? Psychopaths, like everybody that works to rule over you. And in the afterlife, it's probably something very similar, but different rules apply. Because you don't need all these support systems, the best I can tell you don't need any of that stuff. So you don't need physical weapons to create a force to defend yourself, because your spirit, your thoughts, your imagination can conjure up all kinds of nasty stuff to defend yourself. You don't need to stick around in one spot and be harassed by some parasitic entity. You can zip off to somewhere else. You can have a enormously gigantic universe in the afterlife to explore and to regain your memories of your other lives that you've led, that you've had amnesia and you don't remember. You can probably learn a lot faster. Your consciousness is much more immense. Telepathy for communication. All kinds of stuff that we on Earth would be magical, or that only some people can barely do in the physical. In the afterlife is commonplace. So, I'm trying to use generic terms. Different people say this stuff slightly different ways, but basically in the immediate astral dimension, or the afterlife dimension, is like the lower one that is right here around us on Earth. This tends to be where some creepy spirits hang out, being humans that are dead but don't know they're dead, causing hauntings and ghosts and stuff like that. People so attached to something. Like near where I live, there's a restaurant where it's pretty much well known that the former owner just won't leave. He died, and he is in there. Employees have seen him and stuff, and he just won't leave his restaurant. He must be super attached to it or something. And then there's probably like a medium astral, which one of the ways that a lot of that is described is sort of like a mirrored Earth, but an astral version of it or a spirit version of it. And there's homes and people living there. And I suspect that may be a place to pacify everyone until they live long enough to forget the hardships of Earth so that they'll be willing to reincarnate here again. It's possible. I'm not sure about that, but, or it could be just a place that you could stay forever, for all I know. Then there's a higher planes, and there's probably all kinds of other places and dimensions and variations of realities to explore and travel to. So really there's no limit to the afterlife that I can tell. And once you die here, and let me just put it out there for all the people that have caused so much pain, suffering, and tyranny on earth. I do have a desire to have revenge on these motherfuckers. Whether it's in this life or the next. I would love to apply if there's an opening in some of the hells that these people are going to go into, these tyrants, to work there for a while, a few thousand years maybe, to come up with amusing ways to make these people pay for what they've done here under their psychopathy on Earth. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight. It's kind of like a weird subject. It's the earth life versus the afterlife in freedom and what it means. So just a quick podcast on Spreaker, which will populate to, unfortunately, YouTube, but that sends it off to BitChute and Library where it's copied. So you can get to my podcasts and all kinds of cool links and research material at overwatchproject.com. Everything there is free. Everything I do is free. I'm doing it to make up for my former ignorance when I didn't understand this stuff any better. And hopefully if you want to open your minds up to a brand new reality so that you don't make the mistake of doing what some people do, which is leave one bullshit idea to go off to the next. I would recommend that you do a tremendous amount of research if you really are interested in what sane person wouldn't be interested in trying to figure out what's really going on and where you're going to go after you die. I would think that's the most important thing to know. So you can definitely start there and do research and hopefully find what you're looking for. Also, if you are on one of these legacy platforms like YouTube, please go to my website. There are referral links there for Minds, which you can find all kinds of updates. BitChute, which is my favorite other alternative platform, and Library. I know BitChute has a lot of problems, and I'm not sure I really fully trust Library, to be honest with you, but I'm on there. But BitChute is working on trying to improve their services, and I hope they do so quickly. They have a lot of things that they promised they're coming out with, and they've raised a lot of money. They have a lot of users. There's a ton of videos on there and channels now. So it's a viable alternative. So definitely check that out. As far as dealing with the sheeple, I just wanted to point out for voluntarists out there, just a quick note, that now is the best time ever. You have 80 million so Trump voters that now have seen the unmasking of their bullshit voting system, which was always bullshit, but now they can see it for themselves. They can see the massive betrayal of their precious Fox News. It should have been a clue from the beginning that Fox being the thing commonly associated as the trickster spirit. A news service called Fox News was there to be the false opposition to the other ones. But they're all fully exposed. Never before has the corruption, the hypocrisy, the voting system been so openly exposed that voluntarists should take advantage of someone like Larkin Rose's methods of communications. Check out Larkin Rose, his YouTube channel. He's on Library and BitChute also. Watch his stuff. Read his book, The Most Dangerous Superstition. Truly amazing stuff. Also, in the occult world, don't forget about Sophia Di Gregorio and her occult podcast, which you can find on BitChute. It is also linked on my website, overwatchproject.com. There's a huge library of links there. You can find all kinds of things. And I would recommend that you check out redefininggod.com. This is a new website. It's not a new website, but I just discovered it. redefininggod.com. There are some very interesting articles in there about exploring the afterlife and the reincarnation trap. There's also a website called thefreedomarticles.com. And in thefreedomarticles.com, there are mysteries. There's a section on mysteries. There is a whole article called Soul Catching Net. Are we recycled at death to remain in the Matrix? And it's very interesting. So definitely check that out. There was also some info for our protesters in the South here, Florida especially, peoplesrights.org. There was some people that were fighting some of these places that were still trying to enforce mask mandates in Florida, even though there are no enforceable mask mandates. So definitely check that out. And so that's it for now. Take it easy. Check out overwatchproject.com first for all updates. And in case I disappear from YouTube, you'll know that's where you can find me. Have a good night, a good day, or whenever you happen to be listening to this. It is nighttime right now, Thursday, December 17th. And I am signing off. Talk to you guys later. Have a good night. Bye.